There comes a moment when you realize how easily habits hide behind normality. You don't need to be addicted for something to quietly rule your life. That realization hits hard. For many people, alcohol isn't a problem because they drink too much. It's a problem because they never question why they drink at all. It becomes invisible, stitched into every celebration, every social gathering, every cheers that feels more like tradition than choice. And that's where this journey began. Not from destruction, but from curiosity. What would happen if you just stopped? If you took 30 days to see who you really are without it? Most people imagine giving up alcohol as a physical challenge. They think it's about resisting cravings or fighting withdrawal. But the real transformation doesn't begin in the body. It begins in the mind. When you take alcohol out of your life, what you're really doing is stripping away a layer of autopilot behavior. You confront how much of your identity is wrapped around something you never truly decided on. You start noticing the moments you'd normally reach for a drink, not out of desire, but out of conditioning. Friday night? Pour a glass, celebration, pop a bottle, long week, you've earned it. It's astonishing how deeply society programs these patterns into us. The first few days are strange. You notice the silence where that habit used to live. You watch people around you order drinks, laugh louder, loosen up, and a small voice in your head says, "Should I be doing that too?" That's the voice of reflex, not reason. And as the days pass, that voice starts to fade. You realize something powerful. You don't need it. You never did. That first mental shift hits harder than any buzz you've ever felt. The mind becomes sharper when you stop numbing it. You start to see the social rituals around alcohol for what they are. Not evil, not shameful, but unnecessary. You don't need a drink to connect with people, to relax, or to celebrate. You just thought you did because everyone else did? But when you step back and break that illusion, confidence grows from a different place. It's the confidence of control. The ability to say no, not because you're deprived, but because you've already won the inner argument. You start learning what your true energy feels like. Nights that used to revolve around glasses and bottles now revolve around conversation, laughter, and clarity. You start to enjoy being the one who remembers everything, who drives home safely, who wakes up without regret. You realize how much of social life is smoke and mirrors. People pretending to have fun when really, they're chasing a feeling they could create on their own. Without alcohol, you stop chasing. You start living. At first, it feels awkward. You might even feel out of place, a sober observer in a foggy crowd. But soon, that awkwardness turns into pride. You begin to see how much energy you used to waste trying to keep up, trying to match everyone's vibe. And now, you're free. You can go anywhere, a restaurant, a party, a night out, and you don't need a drink to feel comfortable. That freedom is intoxicating in its own way. As the days go on, something shifts even deeper. You begin to enjoy being clear-minded. You start to crave clarity the way you once craved the numbness. You realize how much time and emotion alcohol quietly stole. How many mornings it dulled, how many conversations it blurred, how many goals it delayed. When you stop, you get all that time back. You wake up earlier, you think faster, and you notice the world in high definition again. By the second week, your confidence starts to expand beyond the topic of drinking. You realize, if you can break this, you can break anything. If you can say no to something that everyone around you says yes to, you can say no to distractions, to comfort, to weakness. That's when this challenge stops being about alcohol and becomes about self-mastery. You start asking yourself what other habits you've accepted as normal that don't actually serve you. It becomes a mental detox that reaches every corner of your life. There's also a strange, satisfying irony that appears. The more sober you become, the more alive you feel. You start to laugh more. Real laughter. Not the kind that comes from being buzzed, but the kind that comes from being fully present. You start enjoying music again, not because it's louder, but because you actually hear it. You start noticing how many people hide behind the excuse of loosening up. You used to think alcohol gave you courage, but in reality, it borrowed your courage and returned it with a hangover. Real courage is standing in a crowd, completely sober, and still feeling confident, still being yourself. That's the kind of strength no substance can give, only take away. By week 3, what once felt like sacrifice becomes satisfaction. You no longer count the days, you simply live them. You stop thinking, "I'm not drinking tonight," and start thinking, "I don't even want to." That's when you know the habit is broken. Not when you resist it, but when you forget it. You stop fighting urges because they don't visit anymore. And in that quiet space, something amazing happens. Peace. Mental peace. You feel lighter, not just because your body's detoxing, but because your mind finally stopped negotiating. You're not bargaining with yourself, not debating whether to have just one. You're just free. That feeling of mental stillness is priceless. It's not something you can fake with motivation quotes or external validation. It's something you earn by facing yourself. But beyond confidence and clarity, there's another reward: awareness. You become hyper-aware of how normalized self-destruction is. You notice how the world sells comfort disguised as celebration. You start questioning everything. Why do we need a drink to dance? Why do we toast to success with something that dulls the brain that earned it? Why do we call it unwinding when it's really numbing? You begin to see that quitting alcohol, even temporarily, isn't rebellion. It's awakening. You don't separate yourself from society. You rise above its illusions. You're not missing out. You're finally seeing what's been missing. As you progress toward day 30, the person you were at the beginning feels like a distant version of yourself. The reflexive habits, the casual justifications, the background noise, all gone. In their place stands someone more focused, more alive, more intentional. You realize that you never actually needed alcohol for joy, relaxation, or social connection. You needed awareness, you needed honesty, you needed a clear mind. And that's the real win, not the streak, not the days counted, but the mind you reclaim. When you stop drinking, you don't just remove a substance, you remove a lie. The lie that says you need something external to feel whole. The truth is, you already are. When your mind clears, your body follows. The shift is almost immediate. It's like your entire system exhales. No more poison to process, no more false relaxation, no more invisible fatigue. The mornings hit differently now. You wake up refreshed, not because you slept longer, but because you actually rested. There's no fog, no sluggish pulse, no dull ache behind your eyes, just clean energy, the kind you forgot your body could even create. Sleep, the most underrated form of healing, becomes your superpower. When alcohol leaves your bloodstream, your nights deepen. You fall asleep faster, but more importantly, you stay asleep. You don't wake up restless or dry-mouthed, and your dreams start to feel vivid again. Every night begins to restore you instead of drain you. And you realize, perhaps for the first time, how much exhaustion you once called normal. Then comes the mirror. The face that greets you each morning doesn't look heavy anymore. Your skin brightens, your eyes sharpen, your body starts shedding the quiet inflammation it's carried for years. Alcohol disguises itself as fun, but it's a thief of vitality. Without it, your muscles appear fuller, your stomach flattens, and your energy doesn't spike and crash. It flows. You start moving through your days with a steady rhythm instead of fighting against your own biology. Food tastes better too. Your cravings change. When your body no longer battles toxins, it starts asking for nourishment, not stimulation. Instead of greasy hangover food, you crave clean fuel. You start seeing your body as an ally, not a punishment project. It rewards you quickly when you stop feeding it chaos. And let's not forget the physical cycle you finally escape. That endless loop of earn and undo. You work hard all week, feeling sharp and productive. Then the weekend arrives and you pour all that progress into a glass. Monday becomes recovery day. By Wednesday, you're finally yourself again. Thursday, you begin the slow slide back toward fun. And by Friday, you start the loop again. That's not living, that's spinning. When alcohol disappears, that pattern dies. Every day begins to feel like momentum. You don't need to recover from your weekends anymore. You wake up ready, consistent, focused. And that's when life starts compounding in your favor. Fitness becomes easier, not because you're training harder, but because you're no longer sabotaging your results. Every workout feels more efficient. Your stamina lasts longer. You recover faster. The effort you put into your health finally stays where it belongs, in your progress, not wasted on detox. And something beautiful happens. Your body starts trusting you again. It knows you won't tear it down after building it up. Your energy changes in social settings too. You begin to notice how many people drink just to keep up appearances, to seem more relaxed, more interesting, more bold. But now, you show up fully awake. You talk with intention, you listen deeper, you connect without the fog. You realize that real charisma doesn't come from a bottle. It comes from presence. You stop faking your confidence because you start living it. There's no need to impress anyone when you're proud of being in full control. And the control is everything. That's the true high. Knowing that you could drink, but you simply don't need to. You've proven to yourself that you're not owned by any craving. You can walk into a party, hold a mocktail, and still feel powerful. You can celebrate without losing awareness. You can unwind without losing control. That's real freedom. You begin to see the difference between temporary pleasure and lasting peace. The first one fades, the second one grows. One of the most unexpected benefits comes in the form of time and money. Alcohol drains both quietly. Nights spent drinking don't just cost you the bill. They steal your mornings, your productivity, your clarity. You start doing the math and it hits you. Years of social nights could have funded dreams, travels, investments, experiences that actually meant something. Every dinner becomes cheaper, every outing simpler, and your savings start to breathe. You don't realize how expensive the habit is until it's gone, not just financially, but emotionally. You finally stop financing your own exhaustion. But the biggest reward isn't physical or financial. It's spiritual. The realization that you are in charge of your state. That no chemical decides your mood, your energy, or your confidence. That you can choose to feel alive without shortcuts. Every time you say no to a drink, you're saying yes to awareness. You're saying yes to your future self. That realization builds a kind of self-respect that no one can give you and no hangover can take away. This newfound control doesn't mean you have to swear off alcohol forever. It's not about perfection. It's about power. You might reach a point where you can enjoy a drink occasionally, not because you need to, but because you consciously decide to. That's the difference between escape and choice. One is slavery, the other is mastery. And once you've tasted mastery, you never want to go back to dependence. You also become more selective about your moments. If you ever choose to drink again, it won't be out of boredom or habit. It'll be because you truly want to, because the occasion holds meaning. You'll understand moderation not as a rule, but as an instinct. You'll have reprogrammed the part of your brain that used to chase stimulation for the sake of fitting in. That's when you know you've outgrown the culture that normalizes self-destruction. You begin to question other areas of your life too, your digital habits, your diet, your environment, even your relationships. The discipline you built in one area spreads everywhere. You stop living on autopilot. You start designing your life intentionally, trimming away every behavior that drains your potential. You start to crave structure instead of escape, growth instead of comfort, meaning instead of distraction. There's also a deep sense of gratitude that starts to grow. You begin to appreciate mornings, the light through the window, the quiet rhythm of early hours, the strength of waking up fully conscious. You start finding joy in simplicity. A clear head becomes your new luxury. You realize how much beauty there is in simply being alert. To feel the world without filters, to experience emotion without distortion, to live without sedation. And when you look back at those 30 days, they feel less like a detox and more like a reset button for life. You didn't just quit alcohol, you reclaimed yourself. You learned discipline, you rediscovered clarity, and you rebuilt respect for your own mind and body. You proved that your choices are stronger than your impulses. That lesson changes everything. Because if you can do this, if you can reject something so normalized, so socially accepted, and so easily justified, then there's nothing you can't change. You've proved that your limits are negotiable. You've turned willpower into proof. From that moment on, every goal, every dream, every challenge feels different. You know that comfort is the real trap, and self-control is the real freedom. You begin to crave growth the way others crave escape. You stop needing life to be easy. You just need it to be honest. And that's the real victory. Not just 30 days without alcohol, but 30 days of awakening. 30 days that showed you what clarity tastes like, what energy feels like, what being truly alive means. The version of you that started this challenge was looking for change. The version that finishes it knows they've found transformation. Because in the end, this isn't a story about quitting something. It's about returning to yourself, clear, strong, and fully awake.